Hi, András Ferenc, local researcher at Mobile Vision Technologies. You only mentioned safety once in terms of the statistics about women that they're interested in. But as you have, as you're growing into more cars on the roads, obviously safety is a very big concern. What do you see as sort of the next generations of the active and passive safety applications?
Oh, there are many. There are many devices coming in terms of passive and active safety. Particularly the fact that today you have radars around the car telling you if you get at a certain distance from any object, you start to have a beep. You have the system in which you are aligning on the road, which is automatic. You have the system of what you are at a certain distance from the next moving object. You start to have signals. I mean, we have what we call magic bumper. We have plenty of passive and active safety. The only problem here is the cost, because we have to be careful that we do not load the car with a lot of functionality that the consumer don't want to pay for. Which, by the way, is a major problem, particularly in developing countries, where people are very sensitive to the price of the car. So we need to be very selective on the technology that we put into the car to make sure that this technology is really correspond to the needs of the consumer. But then you have all the options which are coming on top of it. Safety, active and passive safety are going to continue to develop. Car manufacturers are going to be bringing more and more devices. Now, you know that particularly in developing markets, the major number of casualties are not so much due to car accident, that means two cars colliding or one car getting out of control. It's mainly people walking on the street being hit by cars because the lack of infrastructure, the lack of information. And what we are developing as car manufacturer often campaign into developing market to try to help a government put systems in place to avoid this kind of casualty, which is usually the major part of casualty and the major part of accidents happening on the streets. I mean, I know that the statistics, for example, of Brazil, where you have a very high level of casualty, but most of the casualty being people crossing highway or people walking on the street, and there is not enough illumination, there is not enough limits, and all the cars do not have enough signalization around them. These kind of problems of disciplines, of rules, making the cars much more robust, much more reliable, to be visible, are major problems. Now, the sophistication of the technology in the car is not so much a concern because we have a lot of things coming on. The only question here is the economy of these functionalities. Can you add them or not? How much the consumer want to pay for them? The question of discipline and standardization and rules and exchange of best practices is much more efficient at the level of the planet in order to reduce the level of casualty coming from driving a car or being hit by a car.
There's a question in the very back.
Hi, my name is Lucas Minerali. I'm a junior in the math department. I was just wondering what Renault's role is going to be in Formula One in the future, and if you support the move to 1.6-liter turbos for 2013.
Well, Renault is becoming, as you've seen, mainly an engine maker of engine associated with many different teams. Today there are three teams which are supplied by Renault engine. So you're going to see this more and more in the future. That probably more teams are going to come to Renault to buy the car, and we are very interested into trying to bring the Formula One towards more efficient engines, cleaner engine. You know that there are a lot of thoughts about bringing more electric cars in Formula One, or bringing cars which is smaller which is smaller displacement, and we're very favorable to it. But obviously, we don't decide that. This is FIA, which is making the decisions. But FIA makes the decision in function of what is the potential of car makers to produce the technology. And we can develop this technology, yes, but it's not our call.
Sharad Malik, Electrical Engineering and the Keller Center. So could you give a couple of specific examples of where the synergy is really paid off? And also at the other end, how is internal competition handled within the alliance?
Yeah. Well, let me give you some example of synergies. I can give you an example about platforms, engines, and geographic expansion. Platform, both Renault and Nissan needed a small car adapted to emerging markets. Okay, and instead of each one of the two companies developing its own platform and developing its own car, we developed one platform, and on this platform we developed practically the same car with different designs. Just to give you an example, developing one platform in terms of investments is about $500 million. So it's very simple. That developing two platforms is $1 billion. Developing one platform, $500 million. So what is the advantage? If you're two companies developing one platform, well, each one of them is going to pay $250 million. If each company develops its own platform, each one of them is going to pay $500 million. So this is a very specific example. Now, when you establish the platform, then you have to develop the car. And again, if you have practically the same car, but with different designs, you're going to have another important savings in terms of investments, which is going to allow the car company to get the car faster and with less investments. That's one example. The second example is engines. Nissan practically used all the diesel engines of Renault. Development cost of an engine, it's about $200 million. Diesel engines used, we have about 6 or 7 diesel engines necessary for Europe. So 6 or 7 engines, $200 million, you're talking about $1.4 billion. Very good. Nissan saving $1.4 billion of investment by using Renault engine. If Nissan had to develop its own engine, they have to bank and pay 1.2 or 1.4 billion, $1.4 billion. Renault from the other side using the V6 engine of Nissan, well again, if Renault needed to develop its V6 engine, it would have invested this much money. Economy of scale. When you buy, you know that there is a law telling you that the bigger volume you order to your supplier, the more you reduce the cost of these parts. By blending the volume both by Renault and Nissan on the same part, you're going to get much lower cost than if each company was buying alone. Okay, this is another synergy, and we do this a lot. Finally, geographical zone in India. Both Renault and Nissan needed a plant. Instead of each one of them going and developing one plant in India, well, the lines developed one plant in Chennai, and this plant is going to come into Renault and Nissan. Okay, so instead of doing 2 investments in India and 2 teams and 2 hires, etc., we're doing one. And this plant is going to be assembling at the same time Renault cars and Nissan cars. Just to give you an idea, 400,000 cars a year capacity, it's about $1 billion. Okay, so again, instead of each one going with $1 billion investment, and probably having to build the car and filling the plant little by little, you do one plant, you're going to fill it much faster because you have 2 car companies using it, and you're going to have to spread your investment, more into time. So these are some of the synergies that you can use when you have 2 companies working together versus each one going alone.
Last question, I'm afraid. I think I have a student over here.
Hi, my name is Esteban Jennings, and I'm a senior in the politics department. And obviously, the Renault-Nissan alliance has been very successful. And I was wondering how you think your experiences how they affect or what you think the prospects are for the Fiat Chrysler alliance, considering the failure of the Daimler Chrysler alliance.
Well, you know, I think Fiat Chrysler is very different because in a certain way, it's more a kind of merger than an alliance. Why? Because, I mean, it is, when you take a look at least to what they announced, the Fiat products are going to be produced under the Chrysler badge in the United States. That's what they said. They said all the cars coming are mainly based on Fiat cars. So I cannot compare the two experiences. I don't know how it's going to end up, but I think it looks more like a merger or one company with two different brands than two different companies. That's my view on what's happening. Renault and Nissan, you know, they started with two companies, two headquarters, two different teams, two different executive committee, two brands, two strategies. I mean, yes, some influence from one to the other, but still two vibrant company, a viable company with their own executives and their own culture. I think this is something which is unique in the car industry. Now, I'm not saying that other systems cannot work; they can. But I don't think we can compare, you know, what's taking place today between Fiat and Chrysler to what happened at the level of Renault-Nissan, or even what happened between Daimler and Chrysler. I think these are different experiences that will have to be followed, you know, each one on its own merit and on its own performance.
Okay, I'm sorry, we're going to have to cut off. But please stick around. There's going to be a reception afterwards, so you can ask questions individually. And I just want to thank Mr. Goen for a really illuminating talk and dialogue. And
Well, thank you very much.
we have a little present for you.
Do I open
Really
it?
grateful chef.
Okay, okay. So I understand these are the colors of the university, black and orange?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiger.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, it's tailored with my name on it, so thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Going this way? Yeah.